Hello and welcome to Media Monitor on the SABC News channel, independent and impartial. Now, this is where we take a look inside the world of media, analysing the trends, the issues and the reporting of some of the week's top stories. I'm Peter Ndora and this is what's coming up on the show today. We take a look at the fundamental changes taking place within the South African media and advertising industry, in part because of COVID-19. And 4 SABC radio stations turn 60 this month, and we catch up with one of them as they take us through their 6 decades of serving millions of South Africans. In our News and History feature this week, we take you back to 1999 when the ANC won the country's second non-racial general election that saw the end of Nelson Mandela's presidency. So that's the show, but remember, you can engage with us on social media using the Twitter handle #SABC Media Monitor. And you can also share your views with us on our WhatsApp number, and that's 065 862 4548. 065 862 4548. Okay, now before we get into our highlighted stories on the program, let's first take a look at what's on the front pages of our Sunday newspapers this morning. And we start with the Sunday Times, and their lead story today is talking about murmurs of a coup and how top ANC ministers, including Bheki Cele and Ibrahim Patel, are being sent to the Western Cape to crack the whip in the DA-led province. Now, this DA insiders are saying that they are fearing an ANC attempt to use the COVID-19 crisis to muscle in on the only opposition-led province in the country. The City Press, well, they're warning of a big wave of COVID-19 cases as the spate of new cases suggests a surge in infections. The paper says that experts are highlighting the need for good hygiene and social distancing. They also agree that a change in social behavior is the only way to halt the increasing speed at which the virus is currently spreading. The Sunday Independent is reporting what it calls racial strife at the Bar Council. The paper says that black lawyers say that the Pretoria Bar appears to be on the verge of collapse, with black advocates accusing their white colleagues of orchestrating the mooted liquidation of the 120-year-old organization. They believe that the white lawyers want to get rid of the black lawyers in the bar. The Sunday Tribune is reporting how the family of Collins Khoza believes the Internal Army report exonerating soldiers implicated in the death of the Alexandra man in Johannesburg shortly after he was assaulted by soldiers is a sham, and how the family is going to take the report on review. The lawyers say that the report was ridiculous as the Khoza family weren't even interviewed for that report. The Sunday World this week is leading with a preliminary public protector's report that has found former Johannesburg Mayor Herman Mashaba guilty of improperly influencing the MMC for Health and Social Development to allocate 3.5 billion rands in funding to the youth organization Field Band Foundation. All right, so that's what's on the front pages of your newspapers, and we'll take another look at those a little bit later on. But first, let's take a look at some of the trending topics in South Africa on social media. And these are our top trends, and the usual suspects are there. But what's gathered my attention today is level 5. And of course, that's the lockdown that we spent most of our time in, and people now are just sharing their thoughts about it and saying what level 5 brought to them, what it meant to them, and just remembering some of the things that happened and the concerns as well. Alcohol, a big problem for some people, level 5 in the country. And of course, you know, we're in level 3, so many people moving around at the moment, and so people are a little bit more concerned and saying that, look, I'm going to treat it like level 5 actually, and I'm not taking any chances. And again, businesses, some people very happy that they're back, and some people just saying, you know, no need to go back to just ban alcohol actually. All right, so those are your messages around level 5, reminiscing and thinking about how it affected and changed your lives. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic changed the way people are living, even how they consume the media. For many, the media has been a source of information. For many, entertainment is up as people are staying at home. Well, to talk to us about the trends that have been observed during this lockdown, we're pleased to be joined this morning by Amanda Rogali, who's the founder and chief mommy of parenting lifestyle platform Baby Yum Yum. Very good morning to you, Amanda. Thanks so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, and good morning to you, Peter, and to all of your viewers.
Fantastic. So what's a chief mommy?
A chief mommy, I think everyone thinks that they're a chief mommy if they've got kids. We know everything, and that's what we tell our kids. We know everything. I just have the title on my business cards to show my kids, and that really proves it. No, really. So the chief mommy is someone who knows exactly how to connect brands with our community and with our followers and our readers.
All right. Okay, so COVID-19 really changed a lot of the way we behave, a lot of the way that we do things. Let's start with what you've observed as some of the fundamental shifts that have been taking place in advertising and media as a result of this pandemic.
Well, Peter, it was very interesting. At the beginning of COVID, everyone cut down their budgets and pulled back. No one knew what the future was going to be in terms of retail and selling brands in South Africa, and budgets were put on hold. And then the messages changed, where people wanted to put out messages of hope and support, and we understand you as a consumer, and we're going to support you, and our brand stands with you. And now, in the past 10 days, should I say, brands literally have started putting money into promoting themselves again and letting consumers know that they're out there, that they're still available, and that they are in fact able to offer the same amount of excellent service and great quality that they used to offer in the past.
Yeah, I suppose that in many ways is what's motivated the shifts. We're almost in a new normal, but we have to get away from the lockdown mentality.
We do indeed, and it's been very interesting to see that although a lot of traditional advertising spend has in fact been cut down, and I feel that this will be cut down for a long time, and unfortunately this has had a drastic effect on the likes of print magazines, billboard spend. It has obviously reduced a lot of spend in media sector, but it has increased a lot of spend in the digital sector, and that is where a lot of brands are in fact moving to. And we're very, very lucky at Baby Yum Yum that our entire community and our readership is all digital. So we've had to essentially pivot, as have many other brands, to give our consumers and to give our readers something online that's very, very different, to remain relevant and to create a space where brands that advertise with us can remain relevant to our readers the whole time.
All right, so what are the key trends in media consumption? Where are people looking at content? What content, information are they actually even looking at?
Well, I would definitely say that people are looking at stuff that's the most convenient to them. So mobile is obviously the way to go, because that's where most people sit. That's where they consume most of the information these days, is definitely on mobile. They're looking for stuff, quick fixes. They're looking for quick things about information, cheap prices, how they can in fact make things easier. And you saw one of the big trends, well, we certainly saw, dealing with parents and being at home, and I saw one of your headlines just now, was things that people actually learned to do during lockdown. Like you saw an article there, how to sew masks and generate different additional incomes. Banana bread was a huge trend during those initial few weeks of lockdown. People really were looking for things to do with their families. People are now looking for ways to how to generate more income, how to go back to work, what is the new normal of sending their kids back to school, and how to manage their finances. And that's a huge factor that people are looking at. So one of the key trends there is not about how to spend your money, but rather how to spend your money wisely. And we've been very fortunate in the fact that we are obviously pushing that. That's one of our main content themes as well on Baby Yum Yum, is how to go back to school for parents and for kids, and also how to obviously get your finances in touch and how to make it as part of the new normal. So we are really, and I use this word and so do many others. We are pivoting essentially into the new normal. We are giving people what they want. We are focused, and digital spend is starting to recover, which is fantastic. And as you can see, up on the screen is just some stats that were pulled by one of the reports about, how times have changed and what the different age groups and the different population groups are doing. And it's just been really interesting to see that a lot more people have become a lot more media savvy. Who would have thought that we all would have been using Zoom? Who would have all thought that Zoom would now have the value of 7 of the top world's airlines combined together? So it's really just interesting to see that everything has now taken the space on digital. Digital shopping has become a huge thing as well. Everything has moved on to digital, and it's important obviously to connect with your consumers, not just giving them information, but allowing that two-way feedback with them as well, allowing them to actually have an area that they can engage with you as well.
Okay, so we've been talking a little bit about how people are spending their money. What about advertisers? Talk to us a little bit about some of the media spend habits during the pandemic and what's likely post-COVID-19, which is still a while away, I guess.
I think it is definitely a while away. During COVID-19, it was brands putting out the message that we're here to support you, South Africa. We understand what you are going through and we fully support you. And some brands all of a sudden that you hadn't heard of for years or months, all of a sudden just popped their heads out and kind of used this as an opportunity to say, we're here, we're a family trusted brand, we've been in your household for years and we're here. And they used that as a moment to try and bring themselves to the front. Now it seems that these brands are, in fact, these brands and a lot of other brands are using this opportunity to, educate and inform people that they are around, that their doors are still open. Because, some people now are very confused. Are their favorite stores, are their favorite brands still around? Are they still open? Are they still manufacturing? So this is an opportunity now to let people know that these brands are still around, that they are offering the same level of service that they offered before. Their prices remain the same, where people can get their product from, and that, whether there's a delay in perhaps delivery or a delay perhaps in answering particular questions. So this period, I would say, of communication to people is really about answering their questions and their concerns that were perhaps addressed during one of the first phases that we did in fact have during lockdown. And you've seen one of the major questions has been about actually getting product to the people. And there have been major delays and major setbacks. And I think as South Africans have been pretty understanding about the fact that stuff's not going to arrive when it's meant to arrive, or you're going to be limited to certain items, or you're only going to be able to buy 3, not 4 of the items due to stock issues. And I think that that's really spoken volumes about the South African community, which is great. I think that we really have been supporting our brands because we are #in this all together.
I'm fascinated about what activities people have been up to now. They talk about Gen X, millennials, and so on and so forth, and that we seem to be behaving differently. I'm told I'm what's the ones before baby boomer? Because it's giving my age away now. I think I'm Gen X actually. Won't
say that, but I must be honest, it's been very, very interesting. I've learned things this lockdown period that I didn't even know. I mean, my staff have said to me, they think I'm old and I'm not even 40 yet, to be very, very honest. I didn't even really know about TikTok. And I now understand about TikTok and the power of TikTok. And TikTok is definitely a way to start moving. But again, that is something that our sort of community on Baby Yum Yum, which deals with parenting and lifestyle, wants to move into. Also, Instagram, it's become a huge thing as well. And although there are the Facebook followers and the Facebook loyalists, Instagram has become a huge way to move. And that is something that we as Baby Yum Yum, we pivoted into, I would say, at the end of December. got to move into Instagram. And during this COVID period, we increased our following on Instagram hugely so by giving our followers exactly what they wanted, which was a lot of inspirational messages and how-to messages. And we really understood our market using that Instagram. So it's important for brands to actually understand who they are talking to. And not just put out messages on any different platform, because that's the way to do it. They need to know who they're talking to. They need to remain very, very relevant in terms of the messages that they are in fact putting out there. And I think it's important to offer something digital and new to your consumers that they're looking for. So we started offering Instagram live interviews, which has really, really gone down extremely well. Our brands that advertise with us are loving this because it's another outlet for them to be able to promote their brands. And it's just looking for something different. It's like, the potato seller on the side of the road has now started to look for different ways to promote their product, as opposed to just sitting on the side of the road and selling potatoes. They're now doing different sort of things. It's a way of, I suppose, reinventing yourselves and always remaining relevant and on top of mind. And I suppose that's the cliche, and I suppose that's the oldest messaging in marketing, is always remaining top of mind.
All right. I guess we've run out of time, but very briefly, if you can answer this, I guess also you've got to be careful and think about who you're trying to reach, because if you're trying to reach me, forget Instagram. I'm not there. I'm not on TikTok. So probably you'll find me on Twitter, LinkedIn. So as a marketer, you have to think about where your audience is in particular. And I guess your children are not going to be on LinkedIn, right?
Absolutely. I always say to marketers, everyone's in the room. You've just got to know exactly where they're sitting in the room, meaning you've got to know exactly where to position and direct your marketing efforts to. And I think that's the most important thing. But no matter which medium you use to communicate to your market, it's the sense of connection that you have. It's no use just sending out a message to your followers. You've got to have that sense of connection, and that sense of community is very, very important. You need to obviously speak the same language as your followers. And I don't mean obviously language, I mean that emotional connection language to them.
Amanda, thank you so much indeed. Pleasure talking to you. I'm sure we'll chat again in the near future. Thanks so much indeed. All right.
Thank you.
Amanda Rogali, founder and chief mummy of parenting lifestyle platform Baby Yum Yum, chatting to us about the changes that have taken place in the COVID-19 era and the use of new kinds of media and different types of advertising. One of the big things that we've seen as well is that people are consuming a lot more news during this time. All right, stay with us after the break. The SABC has 4 channels that are turning 60.
From grade 1 up until grade 4, I was bullied about my dark skin complexion. That made me to hate myself. I have learned a lot from SABC. I have learned to respect yourself and respect other people and love yourself. One of the shows that have inspired me is Skim Sam. It shows that no matter challenge that you're going through in life, you can make it. My name is Njabula Zulu and I'm 13 years old. I am a motivational speaker, a violin player, and anti-bullying activist.
The 4th Industrial Revolution is here and we should not waste time.
Governments are putting countries on lockdown to curb the spread of COVID-19. Local tech innovators are also doing their bit to help. Like this tap that you don't have to touch to turn on.
Our system, as soon as the foot force is off, it shuts closed totally.
Tech plays an important role again in how we keep ourselves informed.
We are getting on social media maybe for 5 hours.
And there's tech again for us to entertain ourselves as we are locked up in the house.
Instagram, Facebook. During this period, people will be focusing on workouts.
That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 8:30 p.m.
Employers who are unable to pay the full salaries of their workers during the lockdown can apply for the COVID-19 Temporary Employee Relief Scheme.
We put aside 40 billion rand there to help workers who have either been retrenched or have been put on unpaid leave.
Some employees complaining that either their companies haven't paid monies over to UIF or companies not getting back to them.
Anyone who has an employer-employee relationship, the company is supposed to apply on your behalf. And is any company that is affected by lockdown?
Which has been done by our company since the beginning of April, even during the period when we were closed down. When the UIF money came back, it didn't come back complete, not for everyone.
We've been able to increase our capacity technically and even in the number of the processors. We identify the needs for more.
Welcome back. You're still watching Media Monitor. Now, 4 of the SABC's biggest radio stations, Ukhozi FM, Umhlobo Wenene FM, Lesedi FM and Tobele FM, are celebrating 60 years of service. Can you believe it? Yeah. The 4 stations have enjoyed decades of success in broadcasting their different African language groups. Now, their huge support has seen them all secure a spot in the top 10 of South Africa's most popular radio stations. Nada Wochelo is the group executive for SABC Radio, shared her thoughts on the stations reaching this milestone.
It is quite, an honor for us to be associated with such a rich history. Our 4 top African language radio stations are celebrating their 60th birthday this week. That's Ukhozi FM, Umhlobo, Tabela and Lesedi. These stations have come a long way and they've meant so much to South Africans. I mean, when these stations were formed 60 years ago, the sole purpose was for them to be the custodians of culture, to satisfy the linguistic needs of the people. But they've gone beyond that. They've inspired generations to dream big, and they've inspired our people to pursue their dreams, to pursue freedom. They've inspired them to participate in the recording of their history and their culture through our dramas, our music shows.
All right, so those are the thoughts of our group executive for SABC Radio, Nada Wochela. But let's now take a look at what some of the listeners of Umhlobo Wenene had to say about the station turning 60 this year.
Ngifuna ukuthi happy birthday kumhlobo wenene ogqiba iminyaka e60. Umhlobo wenene uthandiswa into ba uneenkqubo ngeenkqubo esithi xa sizimamele sizive into ba sinomhlobo kaloku nathi. Xa besithi unomhlobo sizive into ba sithini hayibo singakhula ibhatyi apha sisekhaya nalapha. So uneenkqubo ngeenkqubo esithi xa sizimamele uzive into ba ungumntana uyakwazi umamela, ungumuntu omdala uyakwazi ukumamela, nabasasazi bakhona bangabantu esibona into ba singafunda lukhulu kubo. Umhlobo wenene ndiwumamela ekseni, emini, ebusuku.
Ndiyawuthanda umhlobo wenene because umhlobo wenene undikhipha ndi-informed, undikhipha ndihleka, undikhipha ndonwabile, wenza nje mnandi ebomini bam. Kwaye umhlobo wenene akasolicayeko. Yayikhupha imali, izantshwenga zizigidi zemali kwabaphulaphuli abaloyali. Hlala uphulaphule umhlobo wenene.
Ufuna ukuthi uwuntsuke kuni kumhlobo wenene ngokugqiba iminyaka engama-60. Oko ke sihamba nani, sihleli nani ubusuku nemini. Siyazithanda kakhulu iinkqubo zenu. Sithi phambili basasazi bomhlobo wenene, babhexeshi beendaba, iinkqubo zemidlalo, zonke iinkqubo siyazithanda, ziyafundisa. Ngasho ke inkosi.
All right, so there you go. Very happy listeners who've been listening for decades at different times, of course. Some calling it their friends and just wishing the station a happy birthday. So 4 of our stations, as we're saying, celebrating their Diamond Jubilees. That's 60 years on air. Now, this week we take a look at one of them, Mhlombo Wenene, who turns, celebrating 60 years for the next 60 days. Now, the station was once known as Radio Xhosa, and has evolved throughout the years to the station that millions now know and love today. Well, joining us now to take us through how the station has evolved is Phumzile Mngci, who's the acting provincial general manager for the SABC in the Eastern Cape. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, Phumzile.
Good morning, Peter. Thanks so much for having me.
And
good morning to the viewers as well.
Congratulations. 60 years is quite a thing. What does this milestone mean for everybody at the station?
Well, it means a lot. Thank you very much, Peter. It means a lot to us because you see, if you look at the station as far back as 1960 when it was born, it was understandably relevant at the time because it was the only source of information, entertainment, and also education. But as the time went on and the evolution of radio started, the station still became relevant, at the time when the radio landscape has been evolving across the country. You will, for instance, if you look at it now, when it is still relevant, at a time when there are so many radio stations, over 230 radio stations in the country, but this station remains relevant when there are so many other alternative radio stations. Right. And even now, in this era of the 4th Industrial Revolution, the station still remains relevant. One, because when you look at it now, we are broadcasting news and current affairs. People can actually access all of that, and in many other sources. We play music. People can access music in many other sources. We do everything, including educational programming, that they can access. It's available in many other sources, but the station remains relevant even now.
All right. I'm fascinated with the history as well, and you talked about its evolution. So it was Radio Xhosa at one stage. Tell us about this shift from that to Mhlombo Wenene. What informed that, and what did it point to in terms of the shift?
The station was Radio Bantu. It started as Radio Bantu in Grahamstown, broadcasting for only about 10 minutes. It was a 10-minute window. I think it was on Radio South Africa at the time. And then it moved to King Williamstown. That's when it started broadcasting from there, and it was Radio Xhosa at the time. Then from there, you will recall that in the mid-90s, there was integration between the then Radio Transkei and the Radio Xhosa at the time. And then it moved to Port Elizabeth. When it moved to Port Elizabeth, during that time, it was now, there had to be a new name because there was an integration between Radio Transkei and Radio Xhosa. Then the new name that came up at the time was now Mhlombo Wenene FM, which is a friend to all the listeners.
And that's what you try to be to the listeners. In fact, one of our listeners there just said that. And I just wonder, what do you think it is that they tune into, that they're looking for in particular? Because you kept on saying remain relevant, but a typical Mhlombo Wenene listener, what are they trying to find? Because in 60 years, you've probably had 3 generations of listeners coming through.
What you see, the most critical connection point is the language, because they get everything in their own language. Now, what it means to them is that they have a sense of belonging. They have a sense of ownership, which translates to loyalty. So they get everything in their language. And you must also understand, as the radio evolves, the station has to become relevant. So they need to understand the lifestyle of its listeners, its audiences. They have to understand the behavioral patterns and their movements so that they create programming that are relevant for the time. And remember, this is the kind of station that is a broad church, which has to balance between the young and the old. So if you can strike that balance better, and then you win them, and then they become loyal listeners of the station through the programming that you create for them.
All right, so that's a lot of history, 60 years, and South Africa has gone through so many changes. And I just wonder what it was like listening to the station in 1994, listening to the station in 2010, because these were momentous occasions, big times, but also that there was a whole new breed of South Africans and South Africa. Has the station changed its sound, its way of doing things, depending on what's been happening in the country at the time? And now we're in COVID-19. What are you doing?
Peter, during the 1994, you must remember that at that time, that was when the country was under transformation. And we had to provide relevant current affairs programming. We are very relevant to the time, and begin to give them all the necessary information that they need to know, without forgetting the history, moving from the history to the current dispensation in South Africa. So 2010, for instance, you look at 2010, there was a World Cup. Umhlobo FM is one of the biggest stations in sport. We had to broadcast all the matches of the World Cup that were played in South Africa at the time, giving them every single match, ball by ball. So, and looking at the time now, there is no other time when, during the time of the COVID-19, there is no other time when people solemnly rely on radio for everything because they were available. Remember, the lockdown has actually locked them down into their houses, and now they rely on radio on everything. That is why they love their station so much. So we had to provide everything to them. I remember very well, people could not go to the church during lockdown. And we created, especially during the Easter weekend, we created a very good church service that we brought into their homes, and the response that we got from them, thanking us for that, was enormous.
Wow. And I suppose over time, there have been some iconic presenters that really have given the station its energy and its feeling and connection with the public.
Yes, that is another area of strength for Umhlobo and NFM. In the past, we were regarded as they used to say it's a backward. They used to believe, in fact, it was a perception that it was a backward station. Now, with the emergence of the young presenters, a combination of the young and old, so that the station can actually remain relevant all the time. Then we introduce the on-air personalities that are young, which we have even now. We train them and they do their best to deliver to their audiences. Today, we speak of the most popular young presenters that we have. For instance, if you look at our breakfast show, which is one of the biggest breakfast show in the country, with 3.1 million listeners, it has young, vibrant, and presenters.
All right, and so what does the future hold? You've already talked about 4IR. People are listening on mobile phones, they're streaming, there's a whole different kind of way of consuming. The content, is that going to change, or are you still going to serve that diet that people just love? Umhlobo wenene for?
The challenge that we face now, Peter, is that we need to create a situation where we have one traditional radio on one side, and we also have the digital platforms, and create some kind of synergy and alignment with all of that. So we want to see the kind of radio station that is aligned and responding to the demands of the fourth industrial revolution, because that is where the future is now. So our programming and all our offerings has got to be relevant, and we must create that alignment between the traditional radio and the digital platforms.
All right, and that's where we're going to leave it. Congratulations on your 60 years, and we wish you the best for the next 60.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That's Phumzile Mnci, who's the Acting Provincial General Manager for the SABC in the Eastern Cape. Now, remember, you can engage with us on social media using the Twitter handle #SABC Media Monitor. And you can also share your views with us on our WhatsApp line, and that's 065 862 4548. That's 065 862 4548.
At a time when we can't physically join hands, it'll take all our hands to fight this invisible enemy. Hands to prevent and detect it. Hands to care for the sick. Hands to help those whose livelihoods have been affected. Outvest, as an official partner of the President's Solidarity Fund, asks you to offer your helping hand. Simply go to outvest.co.za and click Donate. Because the future of our nation is in all our hands. Powered by Outsurance.
Another Cuban team assuming COVID-19 duties.
The way that we are going to fight against this pandemic that is spreading around the whole world is only in one way. Fidel Castro and Mandela showed us that way long time ago.
While scientists work tirelessly to make a COVID-19 vaccine available in the near future, in the meantime, we're urged to wash our hands, sanitize consistently, and maintain social distancing.
Employers who are unable to pay the full salaries of their workers during the lockdown can apply for the COVID-19 Temporary Employee Relief Scheme.
We've put aside 40 billion rand there to help workers who have either been retrenched or have been put on unpaid leave.
Some employees complaining that either their companies haven't paid monies over to UIF or companies not getting back to them.
Anyone who has an employer-employee relationship, the company is supposed to apply on your behalf. And is any company that is affected by lockdown?
Which has been done by our company since the beginning of April, even during the period when we were closed down. When the UIF money came back, it didn't come back complete, not for everyone.
We've been able to increase our capacity technically, and even in the number of the processors. We identify the needs for more.
Welcome back. You're still watching Media Monitor on the SABC News channel. And it's time now for us to go back into our news archives. And we take you back to the 7th of June, 1999, when the African National Congress won the second democratic election. And the party ruled this time around with less than the two-thirds majority that was feared by so many of its opposition parties. Also, former President Nelson Mandela declined to seek a second term, and so that meant a new era for the ANC and a new president in South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, of course. And this is how the SABC covered the story at the time.
The African National Congress will rule the country for another 5 years, but without the two-thirds majority feared by its critics. That's according to final results released by the Independent Electoral Commission a few hours ago. 12 opposition parties mustered sufficient support to be represented in the National Assembly, with the Democratic Party coming in as official opposition with 38 seats. The ANC missed securing a two-thirds majority by one crucial seat. Party leaders and campaigners gathered at the IEC Election Results Centre in Pretoria, where Brigalia Baum, IEC chairperson, announced the final results.
I now announce the results of the seats of the National Assembly. ACDP 6, ANC 266, AEB 1, Azapo 1, DP 38, FA 2, IFP 34, MF 1, NNP 28, PAC 3, UCDP 3, UDM 14, FF 3.
All right, so that was back in 1999. Some of us remember that as if it was just the other day. Of course, a lot of things have happened since then. Parties have come and gone. New actors have come onto the stage, and levels of support have changed over time as well. Now, let's take a look at other stories that have been happening across the continent this past week. On Friday, an appeals court in Burundi upheld a 2.5-year prison sentence for 4 journalists convicted on charges of trying to undermine state security. The journalists from the independent Iwaku Media Group, broadcaster Christine Kamikaze, politics head Agnes Ndiribusa, English service reporter Eji Hariamana and photojournalist Terence Mponzeni were arrested in October 2019 and convicted in January this year. Rights groups, though, have said that the conditions, the Human Rights Watch, for example, have said that the convictions themselves are a clear example of the misuse of the justice system to stifle freedom of expression. The Cameroon Ministry of Defense this week issued a statement confirming journalist Samuel Wazizi died in government custody. The military admitted that its officers arrested the journalist, who had been reported missing in August 2019 after investigations revealed that he was coordinating logistics for separatist fighters. Reports are that Samuel Ebue Aijiaka, also known as Samuel Wazizi, was tortured to death. The government has now admitted that he did die in custody. They denied torturing him, saying that he died of sepsis, which is a kind of infection. In response to the admission made by the military, the Committee for the Protection of Journalists said that the Cameroonian government's cruel treatment of journalist Samuel Wazizi is truly shocking. It's unbelievable that authorities covered up this death in custody for 10 months, despite repeated inquiries from press freedom advocates, his family, colleagues, friends and lawyers. All right, let's look at what's been happening across the continent, particularly where it concerns our journalists. And share your thoughts with us, things that you see on the ground in your home countries. Hashtag SABC Media Monitor. We'd like to keep a tab on these kinds of things and make sure that wrongdoings are exposed. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we find out what's been happening on community media, Soweto TV, and also look at our local newspapers. Stay with us.
Employers who are unable to pay the full salaries of their workers during the lockdown can apply for the COVID-19 Temporary Employer-Employee Relief Scheme.
We put aside 40 billion rand there to help workers who have either been retrenched or have been put on unpaid leave.
Some employees complaining that either their companies haven't paid monies over to UIF or companies not getting back to them.
Anyone who has an employer-employee relationship, the company is supposed to apply on your behalf. And is any company that is affected by lockdown?
Which has been done by our company since the beginning of April, even during the period when we were closed down. When the UIF money came back, it didn't come back complete, not for everyone.
We've been able to increase our capacity technically and even in the number of the processors. We identify the needs for more.
Welcome back. You're still watching Media Monitor. It's time now for us to take another look at media and advertising and how community TV station Soweto TV has been doing during this challenging time for media houses in general. And we're now joined by Liutu Khoza, who's the head of news at Soweto TV. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Peter. How are you?
We're fabulous. So everybody really has found this period of time quite challenging, particularly in terms of advertising revenue. Soweto TV, have you experienced the same?
Well, I think that's a predisposition of the market. You have the situation where as soon as the COVID-19 came, the advent of it actually, we started experiencing reduced marketing budget. Yeah. But what is happening in this space is that we are a small organization and we've been experiencing challenges when it came to proper funding. So I think for us, we had to, first of all, to make sure that we stay in the game. What we needed to do was to be able to work on proper models that will allow us to be able to say beyond this period, what is it that we need to do? So what happened was the fact that the first thing that needed to happen was that we needed to cut staff. But we then realized that in order for us to avoid that, we needed to make sure that we cut down on some of the things that were not necessarily at the moment, so that we are able to cover the cost of our payroll, to make sure that we are able to take out the programs that we know for sure that are important for the organization. They are the programs that bring money. But then that period taught us to be able to say, from now on going forward, we need to be aligning our content with what the market is offering, with the interest and the taste of our people. So it affected us badly, but we're still doing okay for now because we are able to still go on air with fresh content that everyone else actually can see that we are trying our best to go to the communities and be able to get fresh content and still tell the story of COVID-19.
Yeah. Community media, whether it's print, radio or television, very, very important in telling the very local stories. And I just wonder, are you getting more eyeballs watching your TV station at this time because people are locked down?
People are locked down, and I think for us, we are missing an opportunity where not all the time that people are on TV. So you need to make sure that when you get into the space as a community media as well, you make sure that you cover all platforms. I mean, we are still cut off when it comes to the digital space of things, because that's where we're not really pulling our weight. So we are doing our best that we can. We're still doing TV pretty much like how SABC did TV in the 80s, where we have to pre-record and pre-package most of the things that we put on air. So what is important for us is then that to begin to align and synchronize our content so that as people sit at home, they are able to see the content, whether it's on mobile, whether it's when they are on social media. Those are some of the things that we need to really try and leverage on and work on, because people are not just sitting in front of TV. So you need to make sure that you diversify your content, study your market, so that you are able to offer people what they need. And in that way, you will then be able to streamline the market share that you need, that will then afford you an opportunity to be in the space.
It must be quite a challenge for a television station such as yours you've got such a broad audience. You've got the very young right through to senior citizens. And to try and be able to satisfy everybody in a 24-hour period must be quite difficult. I mean, nowadays you've got niche channels. You know, some people will just watch the news all day. Some people will just watch music all day. It must be a challenge to have your format in 2020.
Well, I think it's an interesting one. If I might just share with you, we are going through a period now where we are trying to check if what we offer is really what the people need. Because if you have a Sunday like now and you have religious content, or should we say you have churches from 1 o'clock until 10 p.m. and people still need to watch the news, and you have Black Lives Matter, you have all other issues, you have the Minister of Education coming later on. You need to find a space that will allow you to be flexible going forward, so that even the people that you've come in agreement with would understand that things have changed. It's time for us to be able then to move these times and transform and begin to use our content and use it in line with what is happening in the world, what is happening in the country. Because the minute when you remain irrelevant with your content, people will not come back to you. It will not help. It will not help your organization for people to only come at 6 o'clock, watch the news, and after 24 minutes, they're gone. So we need to try and offer an opportunity for us to repackage our content better. That will be insightful, informative. And with the people on the ground, the communities, these are the people who bring these issues to us. So we are the people who would sometimes even be able to air some of the issues before SABC and ENCAs and all of that of the world. So we stand at the very critical vantage point for us to be able to offer all those things, and no matter how small, to the communities, to societies, so that in return, people then are able to then begin to participate in the content that we offer. In that way, that would allow us a little bit of leeway to then be able to create financial margins that will help us beyond COVID-19, and even making sure that as we are the incubation space for young and upcoming journalists. So we need to professionalize that space to make sure that these young people, as they come, we are able to absorb them, because that's where a lot of ideas are.
All right, so you're head of news, and I'm just curious, what kind of news are Sowetans looking for from you?
It's news. It's everything that you when you walk around you see. I mean, when you look at Vilakazi Street, Vilakazi Street is dead. That's where, when you look in terms of business section, a lot of people on weekends go to Vilakazi Street. That's where we are also stationed. Vilakazi Street for the past 2.5 months has been quite dead. And that also means a lot of people who receive income through the business transactions that happen, the restaurants and everyone else, there is no money. So there is a lot of storytelling around that, how that affects a lot of people, how a lot of students from Soweto are unable to conduct their research, they're unable to graduate, are unable to finish their studies because we have COVID-19. We have most of, in fact, if not 80% of the kids that stay in the township, most of them go to government schools. What is it that we are doing to make sure that those that are at home, especially in government schools, how do we make sure that we disseminate information that will then be able to help them learn while they are at home? The teachers, how do we make sure that we work around the teachers to make sure that they somehow begin to find mechanisms and ways to be able to work from home and help these young kids? Because if you are in private school, you are fine because your parents get sent information. But in government schools, that's not the case. And today we have the minister coming up. So we need to then be able to retell the stories, raise the issues, and then be able to package that information and give it to the people in such a way that that would actually be able to locate them within centers of information where they will also not be behind. So you shouldn't say when you're watching SABC or ENCA, the information is different. We just need to find a space, and that's exactly what we're doing, that we are remaining relevant. We are giving them everything else that they need at the time when everyone else needs to know it.
All right, okay, we're going to start wrapping things up, but a quick look at the papers.
Yeah.
Which ones grabbed your attention? Which stories really spoke to you?
Well, I think I will be remiss not to talk about the Black Lives Matter. We've been trying to avoid the issue, yes.
Yeah.
I know we've drawn some parallels where we said we need to also look closer to home when we try and, engage on the issues of racism. South Africa is a country that we all know for sure that structural racism still exists. So the issues that are happening in America, for some reason, it's not just an isolated one. But I think for me, what has happened is that the activism behind it has not been united from the days when even the young man Browns who was murdered in 2015, 2014. That on its own, from the Baltimore and everyone else, even in South Africa, you see sort of like breaks that took place in between. And I think we really need to work on what is happening now and begin to draft legislature, begin to make sure that even for justice system as well needs to be changed. I mean, if you look at the very same, I was looking at the story when they were talking about the Pretoria bar that is going to be discontinued.
We've run out of time, and we always do this, but thanks so much indeed for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us, and good luck with Soweto TV going forward. And to you at home, thanks very much indeed for watching Media Monitor, and that's where we're going to leave it for this week. Join us again next week at the same time for more of the same, but from all of us, stay safe, wash your hands, social distancing, stay at home and wear your masks. Goodbye, everyone.